I guess one of the problems in trying to... well, I've got a heap of questions. A lot of them are more, I guess, sort of statements and questions. And a lot of them are really around what is it going to take to get the politicians to listen and to take on board what we've heard today. That seems to be honest, as I'm reading through them, and thank you for those who took the time to write them, that seems to be a reoccurring theme, is what do we need to get change? How do we get people to listen to us? And I think, as we've heard from our politicians already today, I guess on some of the smaller issues there might be differences, but I'm pretty sure from those across today that we could give them a flogging, but I don't think that's really going to be helpful because I think they're already on side. It's probably a few that aren't here that we probably want to reserve our distaste for, I guess, and the ones that we're going to have to change their mind. So I guess just as we're going around with questions, keep that in mind. If you've got a burning one, I don't mind a bit of a statement, but keep it down to 30 seconds.
Yes, thank you.
Get off.
Testing. Good. Thank you for a magnificent day, all of the organisers. Well, very well done. My name is Robin Jury. I'm Ken Jury's wife. I have been very concerned over many years about the behaviour and attitude of the MBDA. I would like Speak Up to be able to get to the politicians, Malcolm Turnbull in particular, at this moment, to actually address who is watching the MDBA. We should have the MDBA monitored and, if you like, policed with regard to, number one, scientific, so-called scientific information they put out. We find references very rarely used when they provide new policy. So, can that be answered, please, by somebody? Have you a plan to address who is watching the MDBA?
That's a go.
Yes, there's a lot of angst and there's a genuine lack of confidence in the department that sits in behind the MDBA, and I'll be meeting with Philip Glyde in the next sitting. So early in May we go back to Canberra, and I'll be meeting with him primarily to discuss the credibility, the integrity of the department that sits in behind him, because that's where a lot of the concerns are.
Yeah, just a really quick one on that, and Susanna touched on this. It's really disappointing. Public servants should be up on a pedestal. They should be the final source of truth that we can all trust. And unfortunately, I sense that there's a culture issue at the MDBA, and the way that they handled our initial independent economic analysis was really nothing short of disgraceful. They were background briefing everyone against it without coming and talking to us directly about what issues they took with it. That's been addressed, but you see this evidence of this culture not engaging on a genuine basis, unfortunately, on an ongoing basis.
I think finally on that, you've got to speak up too. If you can't expect people to know what you're thinking and have telepathic memories. If you've got concerns, raise them with your local members and give good examples. If you can't give a good example, it's really hard to talk about the vibe. They're just not nice. If you've got a good example, then use it. But I find most of them are people, and often they do a pretty trying job. But I think you've just got to raise exact examples where they can then go back to people like Philip Glyde and say there's an issue. Please.
John, thank you. We've heard a lot today about the need for new ideas in the implementation phase of the Basin Planning to achieve environmental outcomes. We have put forward in the past an adaptive component mechanism within the 605 or 650 SDL adjustment mechanism. In other words, have a more flexible, less rigid approach to projects that have been developed simply to meet a political time frame. So there are things politicians can do within the basin plan at this point. One is no more water acquisition, and two is what is the impediments to asking the MDBA and the federal and state governments to allow new projects that can help deliver the environmental solutions that have been outlined in many of the speakers today. So in other words, don't just keep implementing the SDL projects that we know, many of them won't get over the line because of constraints. So let's look, and a lot of them are about just putting more water down the river. So if more water down the river is not the answer, then we need new projects and complementary measures as well as innovative projects right down the system. Is there any impediment to pushing for an adaptive component within the SDL adjustment mechanism?
I'm going to stare at Peter Walsh on this one, only because he was one of the godfathers of that particular clause. I guess legislatively there are legislative issues and as we mentioned, a numbers game to changing timeframes, but at the end of the day, nothing's impossible.
No, nothing is impossible, Louise, but I suppose those projects were put forward at the instigation of Victoria as ways of achieving environmental outcomes without having to take more water out of productive agriculture. So they're scored to deliver an environmental outcome equal to if that water was there to meet the timelines. And yes, if the Commonwealth wants to change timelines, they can, but that's got to be there to say this will equal X amount of water to meet the targets in the plan. The risk of trying to change the plan too much, as has been spoken about by quite a few other speakers, if you haven't got the numbers in the Senate and you actually open the plan up again, there's a real risk you could end up with a worse plan than a better plan.
I'm not suggesting opening the plan, I'm just suggesting adding additional SDL projects that can help deliver the environmental outcomes, and I would think that would make sense.
I would have thought the opportunity to do that is in the 450 debate.
Look, as far as the SDLs go, the adjustment mechanism, we all think it's a wonderful idea to actually use another mechanism apart from water purchases to be able to reduce the amount of water that's required to receive the 2750. The problem is that the SDL adjustment mechanism that's been put forward, the 37 projects that have been put forward have been rushed. They've been, all the low-hanging fruit's already gone. The projects that have been put up both by Victoria and New South Wales, anyone that's taken the time to go through those 37 projects, the reality is that there is a lot of water still to be found, and I think what Louise is talking about is that there is not enough flexibility built into the process. The timeframes are ridiculously unreal, and the other part of it is that if one of these projects don't meet the goals that they've been put up for, it is not flexible enough to allow other projects to come in. So the thing that I think that we really do need is to make that SDL adjustment mechanism a lot more flexible so that we can actually, as the new projects come up that are worthwhile doing, they need to be accepted. And I think that's one of the things that the MDBA has been very too rigid about, and it needs to actually become a bit more flexible so that those projects can work. Because the way they are at the moment, they won't work. And then just back to that first question about the MDBA and where we're going and what we can do. The simple fact is the MDBA is supposed to be an independent authority. Now, it was set up as under the mantra of as an independent authority. The problem is it's the 2007 Water Act has set it up as a political process. That needs to change. We do need to get back to the MDBA being able to say what they need to say without being governed by politics. And that's where part of our problem is. The issue is with this problem we've got with the Basin Plan at the moment is that we're actually being governed by politics and political issues. If the MDBA was ever allowed to actually do the role as they were supposed to, which is actually being independent and forgetting about the politics, you know, the marginal seats in South Australia or whatever else, then we would have a plan that would be workable. And that's what we need to work towards.
Is the focus still on dollar, like productivity per megalitre in relation to efficiency? And if so, why? So when this decimates any industry that cannot compete with the dollar market of the day per megalitre, Is the full value of the produce now being considered, or are those prominent water speculators who just want a high return for their dollar preventing a common sense approach to a sustainable, diverse local economy accessing affordable water? Probably RFCG would be a really good one to ask that one. Thanks, Matthew.
So I guess you're sort of asking, do they take into consideration the fact the mill closes or the...
No,
or the
what
other
I'm
things, or-
saying is they chased efficiency based on the dollar that they could get a return per megalitre based on a crop of the day. So obviously the crop that's generating the biggest dollar for the day, the market of the day, is the one that can afford the water. So in doing that, you're decimating the other industries at the same time. So you've got this boom and bust cycle continually happening. So is the focus still on efficiency as in that dollar return, or is it taking into account the entire chain of that produce?
No, I'm happy to talk, but why don't we just, you talk first.
Look, I get the premise of your argument. You're talking about should we just let the free market wield, and I think all levels of Australian government are free market but with limitations. So, but I'm very nervous about going to the point where we say you can't do this with your water. I mean, one of the issues with our farmers is that the farmers have a property right in that water. If they choose to grow a particular crop, and it mightn't be the crop that's been historically grown or something like that, that's their right to be able to do. And I'm not sure what mechanism you would put in place to...
Is the focus and efficiency still on that dollar value of what can be produced? Because you're talking efficiency as if to say that megalitre could produce this much over here, whereas you're not considering the whole...
I think when it comes to dollars per megalitre, that's a decision for the owners of the water, as in the farmers.
Yeah, but I'm talking about from an efficiency point of view, because that's what all this is about, efficiency. Like the efficiency gains were because this water can go and produce almonds, or it can go and produce maize or whatever.
I don't think either the governments or entities, and I'll go back to my past life as a irrigation corporation or anything.
Who are you? Sorry, I don't know you.
Sorry, Austin Evans. I'm the member for Murray. So this area of New South Wales, from Barooga to the South Australian border, 70% of New South Wales water entitlement is in this electorate. So formerly I was with Collie Irrigation, and so the efficiency stuff that's being done is often around how you can use that water efficiently, as in, can we get 1,000 megalitres to this place with the minimal amount of losses? It's not around dollars per meg.
Well, that's probably why I asked RMCG, because that was my interpretation of all of their reports.
That's markets that do that, not any entity.
What would you like to see?
I'd like to see sustainable industries, so that you're not decimating one industry just because one industry can afford water at a massive price this year because the market's good, and decimate another industry at the same time. So
What's the mechanism? How do you do that?
that's what I'm asking. What's the focus? Is the focus on sustainability and diversity, or is it on monoculture? Is it on... So what do you want to end up with?
It's, maybe if I just
Yeah,
take my perspective on what you're asking. This is the importance of having a diverse mix of commodities and geographical areas that work together. Yeah. And the prime example is in the GMID, where it might be okay to, say horticulture is on fire and it's having its day in the sun, as are, nut crops in the Sunraysia for argument's sake. But the reality is, unless there is a functional dairy sector in the GMID, that actually provides, makes the system run and keeps the system running for a certain period of time, horticulture actually piggybacks on all that water through the delivery system. So you can't design, well, you probably could design, but our current irrigation systems are not designed to service just a horticultural commodity base. You need them all together playing their part to come and go according to seasons, commodity prices, all those other externalities. So you can't just think Hort will pay the most for it and the water will go where it needs to. There needs to be some more sort of intervention to make sure that we have a sustainable mix of commodities across the basin, I'd say. Is that sort of where you're going?
yeah, but what's the mechanism? What's the mechanism?
Well,
what's the mechanism? I mean, I think so. I think there is a question about practical delivery capability, and I think we all accept that. I think there is a question about the suitability of land. I think there is a role for planning, so that I think we all accept that water trade is has done great things. So I just, the history of dairy farmers in the 1960s and 70s who went bust, who committed suicide. They had no way to realise an asset value from their ownership. Yeah. So, okay. No. So I think we all accept that there's a role for local government and state governments in terms of strategic planning. I just think I don't have. I think your answer is right. I think we all, and as Shelley said, we all are aiming for an outcome which is a balanced combination of outcomes: economic, social, community, and environment. I'm just a little uncomfortable about. I think there is a role for local government in planning. I think there's a definite role. I think the question about those photos of the pumps pulling water out of the river. I think there's a question about the deliverability of water down stretches, and I think the point that colleague said about fish passage, complexity of ecosystems to deliver outcomes, I think it involves multiple agents. But I'm uncomfortable about government picking winners, and I think that's a problem as well.
Kevin Sutton. Following on Alison's question there, we have a very serious problem in the dairy industry in Wilson, any of them in this region. It takes years, it takes massive outlay of money to set up dairy farms. The ones who control the price of the dairy products, generally speaking, are Coles and Woolworths. The price of milk those dairy farmers are receiving at the moment is about half the price of milk in the shop, just roughly, and in the shop you buy that. The price of almonds, according to their shop at the moment, is $22 a kilogram. Guess who sets the price of almonds? The same people who set the price to the dairy farmers and the other farmers around. Woolworths, Coles, they set the price of every commodity. The ACCC, the Prices Justification Tribunal, have not been called in on any of these issues. These people are suffering prices that mean that they cannot afford the water to stay on their own farms. Water has to be sold. The people that are on lower than the cost of production have to sell the water. So who's buying it? Woolworths, Coles, whoever. What is the 270,000 hectares of almonds, or thereabouts, planted on sand high up from Swan Hill, which does not connect to the river system. That sand is poured, the water goes straight down into the sand, it never goes back into the system. In the Goulburn Murray system, and right through the River Anna, all the water that goes down there goes into the underground supplies of water which feed through capillary action the water that feeds the surface of the ground probably as much as any. On the other hand, there are people out there who say we've got a terrible problem with evaporation. So flows like McCullough, that's 30,000 megalitres a year of evaporation. That evaporation is the only thing that keeps the world's population alive. The water that comes out of the sea in evaporation falls on the land largely. 75% of the evaporation is over the sea. So nobody should be knocking evaporation and closing reservoirs, such as like McCullough, because of the evaporation losses.
Mr. Chairman, can we have questions and not statements, please?
Yeah. We've got to do a lot more about prices, controlling the prices so that the supermarkets pay a reasonable return to the farmers and don't monopolise the total control of the product and therefore own the means of production.
Look, the only thing I'd say on that is everyone knows that if governments take the entitlements off you, all of these discussions about what you grow with the water are academic. We actually need the water in the first place and need it kept in the productive pool, otherwise, and I get that there are other issues with water moving out of regions and all of those other issues, but right now we need to concentrate on what is happening with the Murray-Darling Basin Plan and what are we going to do going forward. The issues around internal water and where it moves, we could have that argument. Yeah. I guess, is there another question that we could have while we've got everyone here? I think they're going to turn the lights out for good in a minute. Is there a question?
Can I add a little bit to that? Transmission
Don't think
losses.
so.
Transmission losses of water to go from the Golden system, right at Waranga Bay, to go down to the islands, probably loses between 40 and 60% of that water. Those farmers pay for the same amount of money per megawatt as the ones who get it at Waranga Basin. So they're actually getting 40%.
Is that the water that we're looking for? Is the transmission loss of water, is that the water from Mariana Basin plant?
No, it's already accounted for in the.
Transmission losses there, how's that being accounted for?
So we've got a couple more questions.
Yeah, look, I've got one, please. Okay. I've got a question.
Yep,
Can I
go
just
for it.
ask about water trading, and I know it is a great mechanism, but can I ask the panel or who's up there what their thoughts are on who should own water? In my opinion, the only people who need to own water who have a genuine use: agriculture, urban, environment. Why should we have investors owning water, please? I really think that could be changed. I think that could be changed quite easily, and it will make a much fairer, open, transparent water trading when it's for people who actually need the use of the water.
I'm just going to take that as a statement. I'm looking around at everyone sort of. Does John, do you want to have a go at that or? Okay.
Personally, I believe that there was a big mistake separating land from water. The only people who should be allowed to buy, purchase and trade water in Australians are Australian companies and Australian individuals. Canadian pension funds or whoever it may be from overseas, not on. Because that's distorting our market here in Australia for Australians for the benefit of our country.
Yes, ma'am, in the middle.
We have a farm and we're only getting 51% of our allocation this year. We pay for 100% entitlement. Now, as farmers, that is really unfair. We paid $30,000 to Water New South Wales for our telemetry meters on the river, 15 k's from here. And also we have a daily electricity cost. And that also includes our insurance. And we're paying $30,000 just for the basics before we get one drop of water. We're a private irrigation scheme. We own our own pumps, our electricity, our motors, our channels. Everything is dependent on the 6 members involved. But if we got our 100% entitlement, which we're paying for every year, instead of 51% as it is this year, we as farmers would be able to manage a lot better. Because if you only got 51% of your annual income, and you have to pay your mortgages, your insurances, your car, living expenses, how would you be able to manage? And some years we've been down to 5% and 0% since the 2000 drought, and yet we're still paying our 100% entitlement fee for our licence. It's unfair. But if we all got our full entitlement that we're paying for, we would be able to be a lot more productive than managing on 51% of our water allocation as it is at this point this year. Thank you.
We need to stick to questions. All valid, but we need to stick to questions. Are we going to be
Two up the front.
Thank you. I think John Madigan leading this question quite well, leading for a while. Rubbery figures. You'll never get the optimum solution if you start off with a dodgy set of numbers. I'm just wondering whether anyone in this room can tell us who audits the water against the MDBA at various stages. Because if those numbers aren't spot on, everything that flows from them becomes distorted. And we are talking, as farmers across the nation, we've got billions of dollars worth of assets that basically sitting in storage, being managed by the And if they're a few percent out in their numbers, and I'm a New South Wales General Security irrigator, so we're right at the bottom of the food chain there. I mean, we get the scraps on daily. So if they make a 2 or 3% miscalculation, and we know the MDBA from past experience aren't that great with their calculators, if they make a 2 or 3% miscalculation in storage and carry over across that pipe and environmental flows, that could probably have as much as a 10 or 15, 20% impact on us on the ground here in the Riverina with our general security allocation, struggling away on 51% because some bugger hasn't checked the numbers. Now, who audits these counts? I think if you're a public listed company with that sort of money floating around through your system, there's the obligation for an annual audit. So I think one of them quite a chance to put a motion that we should have an independent audit of all water against the ship. Can anyone answer me the question? Does the MDBA mark its own homework? Who audits the numbers?
Susanna, yeah. We'll go first and then...
Look, I think one of the big problems with the MDBA is the fact that it does all its own compliance, it self-regulates, it does so many things that it oughtn't to be doing. There ought to be an independent auditor there looking over it. But if you go to its website, it does its own reviews, its own reports, its own compliance accounts, and it's not good enough. And I think at the moment the Productivity Commission are looking at this, and it's really something to raise with them at the moment while they're actually reviewing the MDBA and the rollout of the plan. But you have to ask, when they were spending 3 or 4 years in the Northern Basin, that they didn't come up with some of the problems that have shown up there. They were doing a review and not a word out of them about all the things that we now know are going on. It took Four Corners to be the one to put the spotlight on what's been going on, and really it is the role of our elected representatives to call these organisations to account and to make them accountable properly. And to do that, you've got to have some independent scrutiny by someone else, not have organisations do their own reviews and look at themselves.
So specifically you're talking about New South Wales and specifically about allocations. So you're talking about 2 entities that run the water. For these lower parts in the Murray, you are talking about the MDBA, which is... It's an unfortunate thing that we probably should separate the two out, because there's actually 2 roles. There's MDBA operations, which runs the dams and the river along the Murray River, and then there's the MDBA organisation that's doing the basin plan. For the most of the rest of New South Wales, it's Water New South Wales that runs the dams and the rivers and does those calculations you're talking about. What I spoke about before with the Natural Resource Access Regulator, the new body that's coming in New South Wales, they are the ones doing the auditing of Water New South Wales and the MDBA. So they are an independent body that will be doing the checking on the metering and the accuracy and the transparency of those 2 organisations that actually run the rivers.
We're going to wrap it up there, I think.